Skinwalkers, beings of evil and malignant intent. Once humans who had given themselves over entirely to evil, now roam everywhere else but the desert to prey and haunt and terrify people. Tonight, we are going to look at 5 horrible Skinwalker encounters. Story 1. The Stalker. I know I literally just joined, but I am utterly terrified at this very moment. I'm not home alone, but my brother is dead asleep and nothing can wake him up. Not even loud music. I will first explain what happened to me last night, and then I will begin with what's happening right now. I'm only 15. I'm Australian, and I fear I have a Skinwalker stalking or taunting me. Now, before I start, I know that Skinwalkers are supposed to be only in America, but I do not believe that they are only there. I really do believe there is one here. Please, tell me and help me. Last night, I went to bed normally at roughly 8 p.m., scared and terrified for no reason, literally no reason, but I still managed to somehow go to sleep. I woke up 5 times from what I can remember. The first time, I woke up after a happy dream, in a cold sweat, absolutely terrified, scared, and paralyzed. I fell asleep from fear, I'm pretty sure. The second time, I don't really remember. I just remember waking up, still feeling absolutely terrified and in a sweat. The third time, I was terrified, still. I wanted to prove myself. It was nothing, and I was just being an idiot. I sat up, still scared, and I smelt like I had just ran a marathon. I didn't care. I just knew in my mind I stunk. Anyway, I got up looking for my dog Choppy. He is an English Mastiff. He must have sensed I was terrified or something because I couldn't find him where he usually was, which is on the couch. He was on my floor, laying there, staring at my door, completely focused on something. This scared me even more and just went straight back to bed, laying there scared. I turned on my phone. 3 a.m. something. I turned it off and just rolled onto my side and looked out my door until I fell asleep. The last 2 times I remember just doing the same thing, waking up and sitting up, with absolute dread and terror, looking and making sure my dog was still there. I made him sleep on the bed with me last time I woke up. I told my mom, and she just shrugged the whole thing off as me being restless. She is a very skeptical person. I have never had sleeping problems. Never ever in my life woken up with fear, terror, or even sweated for my worst nightmare. I will now explain what's happening right now. I live in Australia. I'm not giving my exact location. My parents aren't either home because my mom has to pick dad up from the airport tonight. He works in Washington and gets to fly home every month. I am basically home alone. I don't even want to call out for my brother to see if I can wake him up. So, I'm just sitting here in silence, only listening to the taps of my fingers on the keyboard, trying to calm myself and the thing. I'm scared that even if I leave my seat to do anything, it's going to come through my back door after me. So I'm staying and I'm sitting typing out this story, or whatever you may call it. My parents are coming home at around 12 to 2 in the morning tonight, and it's only 8 p.m. I'm literally about to cry. My late evening was consisted of cleaning. I like cleaning anyway, and I was finishing up with the dishes when I heard like a dog whimper. It didn't sound like one of my dogs, but I checked anyway. Maybe it was Chopper or one of the 3 out in the side pen, so I went to make sure they were okay. Choppy was sleeping, and the other 3 were all asleep. I went outside to make sure there wasn't a dog or anything, and there was not. This was really odd, but I thought nothing of it and just tried to play it out as they were dreaming or something. I do not like to think it was them. I could and still feel eyes on me. I can feel the dread, the terror, everything in me. But I'm trying to show that I can be calm and relaxed. I don't know if it is working, but something is out there, and I could hear it walking, going through our trash every night. I heard it burp or something. It did not sound like anything I've ever heard, and we do not have dingoes in the area, nor any wild or stray dogs. It keeps growling or trying to talk. Whatever it's doing, I'm not complying with it. I'm going to stay planted in my seat. Plus, I don't even want to think about... I'm trembling. I couldn't even walk towards it. I'm that scared, trembling, shaking, and glancing at my glass sliding door on my kitchen window every 5 seconds. I don't want to move. I'm shaking. I'm just trying to be calm. I feel like its eyes are on me no matter what I do. I can actually feel it. It's piercing my soul. I can now hear something going through the trash. I have the back door open. I had it open so Choppy could enter and leave freely. He looks terrified. He went out there. He was barking and growling at whatever it was. So were the 3 other dogs. He came in and the other dogs just went dead silent. He's sitting on the couch, just looking out the kitchen window. We both give each other glances, even if he is just a dog. It's like in this conversation, we can understand. We are both looking at each other as if to say, do something, or holy shit, what is that? I'm going to keep updating this, but before I post this, I'm just going to say that whatever it is, it stinks like rotten eggs and dead rotting animals or something. I don't know, like if you put rotten milk with yogurt all at the same time, it's horrid, and there are no rotten or dead animals here before. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I'm just terrified and I have no idea what to do. Please help me. Story 2: The White Skinwalker. So, about 2 weeks ago, I was in my room minding my own business. I had just gotten off of work and finished showering. It was 11 at this point. I always keep my window open because I love fresh air and the nice breeze. I should also mention I live in the ass crack of the woods in Missouri. Anyway, I heard leaves rustling outside my window, so I opened up my oh-so-protective screen barrier and shined my light out and saw an animal. I couldn't make it out because it was dark and an iPhone light doesn't reach very far, but we had a staring contest for a few seconds before it calmly walked away. I was obviously freaked out because I can usually make out an animal by its shape, but I couldn't recognize it. This happened last Tuesday. I closed and got home from work. Same thing. Windows open and my handsome little chihuahua sitting on my bed next to the window soaking in the breeze. I was jamming to some childish Gambino and walking around my room to get my steps in when I heard a storm coming. I went to my other window that was closed and looked out into our driveway, and I saw this massive white creature sprinting our yard into our driveway. When I saw it, I thought I was having a fever dream because I've never felt such genuine terror before. I felt my heart pang and my knees buckled. Then I realized my window on the opposite side where my chihuahua was sitting by, and I thought, oh my god, it's going to the window. I shit you not, when I was overtaken by the spirit of Asian Bolt and sprinted to my window quicker than I've ever sprinted before and slammed it shut. My chihuahua was confused because I shoved him out of the way, but the window was stuck, almost, and I've never had an issue with closing it before, but I got it shut regardless. I sat there trembling by my window with a warm and tingling sensation in my legs over what I'd seen. I haven't told anyone because I'm scared they'll think I'm lying. Am I paranoid, or what the hell is this? Story 3: The Bear Skinwalker. Before I start, I should mention that I am a half-white, half-Mexican male, and this story happened to me when I was 17. My family went to California for a summer vacation and to see the family we have out there. That year, we decided to go camping in a certain park in northern Cali for a few days, and being a Phoenix native, it was a much-needed break from that 120-degree heat. All was good for the first few days until the second to last night there. A group of 5 to 6 of us were sitting by the campfire at 1 in the morning when we noticed the forest goes dead silent around us. As we all look around at each other, questioningly hearing the pain, blood-curdling scream of a woman say, "No! No! No!" ring from trees to the left of our camp. Not knowing what was wrong or what was going on, we kept our ears open and stayed on guard. A few moments later, we hear the same noises again, but somehow different. More inhuman, like a voice being played off of a speaker. We instantly recognized it as the voice of the woman from before. Horrified, we quietly all went to our tents to hide. Eventually, we all fell into an uneasy sleep. I jolted awake at 3 a.m., desperately needing to pee. Thankfully, we were across from the outhouses, so after a quick sprint over the outhouses and relieving myself, I hear what sounded like scratching on tin metal roofing. I immediately froze, remembering the inhuman howl from earlier. I hoped that the two weren't related. Armed with only my phone, I watched the next half an hour tick down, either waiting for the sun to rise or for the sound of scraping to have stopped. Then, suddenly, the light in the bathroom cut out. The timer for the lights had gone out, leaving me in the dark. With the faintest bit of light threatening to peek its head over the horizon, I decided to make my break back to the tent. I made it across the dirt road to the camp when I heard it. It was the woman's shriek, but not loud. It had the same intensity and inhuman artificialness, but barely a whisper. Foolishly, I turned around and perched on the metal roof I was just under was a 7-foot-tall, pale gray creature with 3-inch claws on all fours and deep, sunken-in eyes staring at me just a mere 25 feet away. This thing I now recognize as a skinwalker. Its flesh was tightly stretched across its bones. It was completely hairless and lacked any form of genitalia. I was frozen solid as we looked at each other until it looked to its right and saw the light creeping up. It stared at me and let out the same agonizing cry that haunted me all night as it raised its left front and rear legs to the lowest hanging branch, followed shortly by the right. It sent one last soul-stabbing stare before it vanished into the early morning light. As I lay back into my tent, silently sobbing in my sleeping bag, I hear the faint echo of the Skinwalker's cry. Needless to say, I didn't sleep at all that night, and I refuse to ever set foot in those woods again. Story 4. Childhood Horror. 15 years ago, I lived in a town in Indiana. Where we lived was in the country, only a few miles away from town. There were a few weird things that happened, so first off, I woke up at 3 a.m. and had a strong urge to go to my window. When I opened the blinds, I saw yellow eyes, and it was as if it was piercing through my soul. I felt instant hopelessness and fear, and then turned around and went back to bed. I'm 100% sure I wasn't dreaming when the morning came. I went to the area and I saw the eyes. I didn't see any footprints. The following night, I was standing on my porch and suddenly smelt rotting flesh. It's the worst smell I've ever smelt, and I proceeded to hear crunching leaves. I knew something was around, waiting, stalking me. To my left, I see a very large black dog walking toward my home. I screamed and I ran inside. That night, I heard scratching on the side panels of our home. The following day, I found a large patch of fur, probably 4x4 in the same area where I'd seen the large dog, but the fur was white with gray instead of black, and I saw black on the creature. I called this thing a dog, but it was so dark. I looked at it long enough to determine it wasn't a deer and freaked the hell out. I ran, but I also know it was tall, and it was on all fours. We lived at the house for another year, and there were still some mornings I would smell the rotting flesh stench. There's also been weird instances where I've spoken about this and phones will glitch or the phone line will mysteriously cut out. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it's some spooky shit. I didn't even know what I saw until a few months ago. I was drinking with a friend and I told him my story and he starts going on and on about these beings called skinwalkers. And I wanted to know if I could get any help. I just found this sub today and I wanted to know if anybody could help me. Story 5. Skinwalkers in Scotland. Okay, so 9 months ago, I went to stay with my grandmother in the countryside. She lives in a tiny village in the middle of nowhere in Scotland. My grandfather has recently passed away after a very long illness. So, I was worried she might be lonely. So, I went to go stay there with her for a while. One night, it was perhaps 1 a.m., I couldn't sleep. So I got on my laptop in the guest bedroom that had formerly belonged to my grandfather. It had new furniture, etc., to make it a guest room, as his hospital bed and all of his other medical stuff was taken back. As I'm on my laptop, I hear what sounds like a flock of chickens going by the window, going nuts and clucking. I think nothing of this and chuckle to myself, thinking the neighbor's chickens had gotten out. I'm about to go check the window, thinking if this is, I'll put food out and try to herd them into the garden so they could stay in one area and not get lost. Before I reach the window, however, the noise of chickens changes and begins to blend together into a noise that gets louder and louder and distorted until it doesn't sound like chickens anymore. It sounds like screaming that has me frozen in place. It no longer sounded like multiple voices of an animal, so I knew it wasn't a flock of chickens being attacked by a fox or something. It was now a hellish screaming noise that I had never heard before. It sounded terrible and sent shivers down my spine, and it was directly at my window, which was thankfully covered by curtains. It stayed at my window for perhaps maybe 10 minutes, while I'm frozen from fear in the middle of the room before it left, and I could hear the screaming get more and more distant until it was gone. I have no idea what I heard, and was too scared to talk to my grandmother about it the next day. I have no idea if skinwalkers have ever been noted in my country, but in all my digging into what could have possibly been, only skinwalkers come close, so I figured I'd share it with you. What do you think?